Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I prepared another list video for all of you. I'm going to be calling it 10 to-be-read Marvel Omnibuses I Need to Finish. Yes, this is my Marvel Omnibus TBR, or To Be Read pile. For whatever reason, I have not quite finished these books. Most of them I'm quite a ways through, but hopefully this video will help inspire me to finish it all the way. In some of these cases, I'm almost embarrassed I haven't finished, but I'll get to that as I get through this video. Anyway, I'm really excited for this one. I've been thinking about it for a while. Before we jump into the list, though, I do want to shout out our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking for your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description. And hey, if you see something there you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate code or link to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's probably the best way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with the TBR list. First, in no particular order, we have The Amazing Spider-Man by Nick Spencer Omnibus Volume 1. This is a Volume 1 of a 2-volume set. At this time of recording, Volume 2 is supposed to come out sometime in May of 2024. As you'll see throughout the video, I have a ton of Spider-Man on this list because I am a huge fan of Spider-Man, so I try really hard to get these omnibuses, but then I find myself unable to actually get through every single one as I juggle so many different comic titles at once. This made the list though because of modern Spider-Man writers, Nick Spencer was easily one of the ones I wanted to read the most. I remember when this run first started coming out, it was getting a lot of praise for kind of a return to form with basic mechanics of what makes Spider-Man great, or at least that's what I had heard. By the end of the run, I think a lot of people felt a lot more lukewarm or maybe negative about the run. I definitely heard some people that still loved it all the way through, but I think the reactions were more mixed by the end of this run. But that being said, I am so excited to finish this run myself. I'm still making my way through, and admittedly, I'm toward the beginning of this collection. But I did pre-order Volume 2, so I have to get going. Another huge selling point for me for this run is the artwork of the incredible Ryan Ottley of Invincible fame. At least that's where I know him from. But I think that he's a wonderful choice for a Spider-Man run. I just know flipping through this book, it looks absolutely gorgeous. I am a little embarrassed this is on my TBR list, my to-be-read list still, because this was a long anticipated book for me. I got it, I believe, pre-ordered, and it's just sat on my shelf largely untouched. I've read maybe one or two issues of it, but it's a huge book, so I need to get going. Maybe in the comments, if you liked Nick Spencer's Spider-Man, definitely chime in. Maybe, like I said, that'll give the encouragement I need to finally finish this out so I can read the Volume 2 as well. I know flipping through just how vibrant and wonderful all the character models are, the action sequences. I don't know what's taking me so long. This looks like an absolute winner to me. Like I said, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I really enjoy these creators, so hopefully I can get this one out of my to-be-read list and get it reviewed. Next on the list is an awesome Spider-Man event omnibus. This is the Spider-Verse Spider-geddon omnibus from Marvel. It includes, as the title suggests, the Spider-Verse event along with Spider-geddon, which was a sequel of sorts as far as my understanding goes. This definitely brings in a lot of our fan favorite Spider people. I really want to read this book. I've had it again on my shelves since shortly after it came out. This was one that I really was eager for after the popularity of those Spider-Verse animated films, and just enjoying a lot of these Spider characters. This feels like a no-brainer to me. Flipping through the omnibus, the art and the variety we get here looks incredible. I've become a fan of some of the characters that appear here, like Ghost Spider or Spider-Gwen, and so I really want to read the event proper. I think one of the reasons I haven't quite gotten into this one yet is because I'm not really sure everything I want to read leading into it. I think I've heard that you can read it kind of as a standalone and it gives you what you need to enjoy it. I've heard that it incorporates characters from the JMS run on Spider-Man, which I've read once upon a time. So I'm sure I wouldn't be too alienated just reading it, but I'm not sure, again, what I want to read to prepare for this book. This book has been on my mind a lot recently. I know I recently did the Spider-Verse playlist, list, I even included this book. I did think I admitted I hadn't finished reading it, but at any rate, this feels like a big pivotal moment in modern Spider-Man history, and again, I just want to read it. It shouldn't be in my to-be-read list. I should have read it by now, but I'm hoping to get to this maybe sometime this year if I can. Like I said, there's a lot here that I think really I'm going to enjoy. I know this kind of Dan Slott era of Spider-Man has kind of some polarizing reviews, but everything I've read of Dan Slott's Spider-Man, I've really enjoyed, and for me, this event just seems, again, kind of like a no-brainer. It checks all the boxes I think I would enjoy in a modern Spider-Man book, and the fact that it's Spider-Man-centric events, I don't know what is my holdup, because even flipping through, it just looks amazing. This looks really incredible. If you're a fan of the Spider-Verse or Spider-geddon events, or maybe you've read this omnibus yourself, let me know, spoiler-free, but what do you like about this book? What are maybe some drawbacks? Again, I'm hoping to get inspiration in this video even, and comments, to kind of inspire me to finish the lap, to kind of actually make my way through some of these books. Okay, next up we have the New Mutants Omnibus Volume 1. I know Chris Claremont did a lot of writing on this book. This is the first real spin-off of the Uncanny X-Men once upon a time. These are kind of the X-Men juniors. This is like the young teen X-Men book that spun off. When the X-Men are kind of lost in space, presumed dead, Xavier ends up taking in a branch of younger mutants that need schooling, need a home, need care. And this is really the team here. For those unfamiliar with New Mutants, that's kind of a basic primer on what this team is and kind of how it functions. I think some analogs are things like DC, like Teen Titans, for example. Like, this is the teen team of superheroes. They're not necessarily meant to be X-Men as much as students, and yet they are kind of being primed to be X-Men. They get into a lot of misadventures. What I like about this title is I think a lot of these characters are lesser known by the mainstream public. I know they did release a New Mutants film that has some of these characters, but I still feel like in the cultural zeitgeist, a lot of these main mutants aren't really known as well. But I think all these characters are really fascinating. Their powers are interesting, and certainly their dynamics are really fun. Even within this first omnibus, you get a lot of just great character growth by a good handful of them. I know the character Sunspot and Cannonball, Magic. These are all really fascinating characters to me. I should say that this is in the to-be-read pile, but I'm almost done with this omnibus. I think why I still included it is because it's still not finished, and I really need to finish this one because I really enjoyed it. I am a big X-Men fan. I started reading the Claremont era of X-Men sometime last year. I had been absolutely hooked, so when they spun out into New Mutants, I knew that this would be a title I wanted to check out. Like I said, in this whole big omnibus, I'm actually almost done. I just need to get that final lap so I can go ahead and review it for the channel, maybe start volume 2, but really love this book, you guys. I think that for having kind of juvenile characters, there's a lot of kind of more maturity to this title than I maybe expected from the outset. I think the characters, like I said, are all interesting. They're given an ample amount of time as far as how we split the dynamics, and it's a really engaging book. Some of these arcs are really fascinating. We have some gorgeous cover art throughout, and this omnibus is just really beautifully put together. And hey, if you're watching and you're enjoying this video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I just want to invite you to do so. I'm always doing list videos like this, comic book reviews, and recently I've even started live streaming on occasion. Anyway, thank you so much for considering. Now on with the show. Next up, we have the Alpha Flight Omnibus by John Byrne. This was another team that I believe spun out of the pages of the Uncanny X-Men. I know that's certainly where I got my introduction to this team. They're kind of the government-regulated Canadian superhero team. They have some ties to our favorite knucklehead, Wolverine. Anyway, this is another really eclectic, interesting team dynamic. I love the Sasquatch, for example. But anyway, the dynamics in this team seemed super interesting when I read their exploits in the pages of the Uncanny X-Men. When I heard that John Byrne had a whole proper run he did for Alpha Flight itself with their own solo series, I was really intrigued by this. I am a fan of John Byrne. I know I've read his Superman, some of his Fantastic Four, and just so many other works throughout the years. So anyway, I thought that this would be kind of a fun X-Men spin-off book in many ways. I know not all the characters are mutants or anything like that, but it just seemed really interesting to me to have a Canadian superhero team. I think the characters looked fun. Like I said, I like John Byrne. So when I heard they were reprinting this omnibus last year, I actually pre-ordered it. So I was eagerly anticipating this book. I think one of the only reasons this is still on my TBR pile is simply because it came in around the same time as a lot of other books I was hoping to get through, and so it just kind of got backburnered. This is a great series so far. I am a couple issues into this omnibus, and I'm liking it a lot. I think the art is really awesome. It's at a certain time and place in comic books that I'm just a fan of, and I love all of these kind of X-Men offshoots, frankly. So honestly, there's a lot here I know I'm going to really like. I just need to sit down and commit to reading it. Let me know what you think of Alpha Flight. Is this even a book you've heard of? Are you a rabid fan of it? Do you have this omnibus yourself? I'd love to hear all about that in the comments. But again, as I flip through, this omnibus does start with their appearances in X-Men and like a Hulk book and some of these other smaller other series before we get into the actual self-titled issues, the Alpha Flight book by Byrne. But yeah, this is an omnibus I was really hoping for. So it's one I definitely want to eventually move from my to be read to my completely finished and hopefully reviewed on the channel list. Anyway, wanted to showcase this one because I just think it's a beautiful looking book. Next up, we have more Spider-Man. Today I'm going to be looking at the Superior Spider-Man Omnibus by Dan Slott. Now, this is another omnibus I am reading through. I've gone maybe a third through it, maybe a quarter through this omnibus so far. Really enjoying what I've read so far. I just, again, need to commit and buckle down. I feel like I'm reading so much that I don't always have the chance to finish up everything at the time I get them. But this is the run that introduces the titular Superior Spider-Man, which is basically Dr. Otto Octavius's brain in the body of Peter Parker. What's really cool is that when he transferred his mind into the body of Peter Parker, he's kind of haunted by the ghost of Peter who's still kind of residually in his mind, and he's also inspired. He goes through all the experiences in his mind of Peter Parker, and it makes him more empathetic, and he kind of vows to be a more superior Spider-Man, using all his intellect with the abilities of Peter Parker to use his great powers for responsibility. But it's definitely a darker edge. I think that there's a lot of great redeeming moments for Doc Ock in this book. It's a lot more exciting than you would think. I think that this is a premise that on paper sounds cool, but also feels like it could fail spectacularly. But I honestly think that a lot of people consider this one of the most well-regarded modern Spider-Man runs of all time. And reading just even this first portion of it, I can absolutely see why. It feels fresh, interesting. The concept just works. It works out even better than you would think on paper. The art throughout it is really fun and interesting. There's a kind of animated, cartoony quality to quite a bit of it. But I really like this. I like seeing the edge Doc Ock brought into the universe of Peter Parker. It's sad not to have proper Peter here, although you still, like I said, get his influence and these kind of ghostly image sort of moments. But yeah, this one's a ton of fun. I'm really sure that this is one I'm going to finish, but I really like what I've read so far. This one, actually, I might need to move to my more active read pile. But for right now, it is on my to-be-read list, so let me know if you're a fan of the Superior Spider-Man. Like I said, I'm really enjoying this one so far. I just haven't quite finished it just yet. Next, we have Jason Aaron's Thor. This is Omnibus Volume 1 of a 2-volume set. This is considered one of the best modern Thor runs of all time, and honestly, reading the first couple story arcs, I can absolutely see why. If you're a fan of the Thor Love and Thunder movie, or even the idea of Love and Thunder, you definitely want to read the comic book basis. I think this is so much better than that film. We have the kind of Gore character, kind of trying to extinguish all of the pantheons of Norse characters and some of those other kind of just highly elevated beings in the Marvel Universe. Really a fun story arc to start this run with. The art is absolutely incredible. It has this kind of mythic, fantastical quality throughout it. We get some Esad Ribic here, of course. This run also introduces us to Thor, kind of Lady Thor. This is another concept, if you've seen Love and Thunder, kind of took from this run. I am a huge fan of Jason Aaron. I've really enjoyed some of the other stuff I've read from him. Most recently, I went through his Star Wars run, which I know is a little bit different, but still a fantastic run for fans of Star Wars. But this book is really incredible. Like I said, I've really loved what I've read so far. This is another one I've gone maybe almost halfway through this omnibus, maybe not quite. So making my way through. I do have the volume 2 I got as a gift. I wanted to make sure to get a copy of that before it went out of print. This is a book I also absolutely plan on finishing. It's just a matter of when I'll have the time to continue to make my way through. Thor, up until recently, wasn't really a character I had read, but I'm starting to dabble with this character. I read the Matt Fraction run. I've read some other books, some of the Silver Age, and now going through this. But yeah, really liking this book so far. The art is consistently great, even as it changes hands a few times. I think the narrative voice is just really strong. I think for fans of kind of fantasy-like storytelling, even in that kind of Marvel universe, this is one of the best runs I can point to. It really has this fantastical feel to it. It feels really wide open and just incredible. I think the scope of this run is magnificent, and I'm just scratching the surface. If you're a fan of Jason Aaron's Thor, though, let me know in the comments. I know so far I'm definitely on board. Continuing in the realm of I cannot believe I've never finished it, we're going to be looking at Avengers by Jonathan Hickman, Volume 1. For longer-time fans of the channel, you might know the Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman was one of my favorite comic book reads of all time. I think I named it my favorite comic book read of 2022. Anyway, after reading that run on Fantastic Four, I was on the Hickman train for life. Also really enjoyed some of his other work, like the stuff he did on X-Men, House of X, Powers of 10. Really enjoyed the Secret Warriors run I even read, but I knew his Avengers run, culminating in Secret Wars, would be something I had to check out. Now, admittedly, I did jump the gun and also read and review Secret Wars already, but I wanted to read the Avengers run proper. When I found out they were releasing both volumes of his run in this omnibus format last year, absolutely had to prioritize picking this up, and yet when I got it, I didn't finish it. I'm still making my way through. This is another book I'm probably halfway through, and I just need that commitment to get all the way through it. I'm a huge fan of Jonathan Hickman, like I said, and it feels like just embarrassing at this point that I haven't finished his run on Avengers. Especially when so far, it's really riveting. I think it's interesting, it's a lot of fun. The way he expands the roster of Avengers is really interesting to me. I think the kind of heavy sci-fi influence he brings to the Avengers is a lot of fun. And we just have this kind of like, just unbelievably existential crisis that's looming at the heart of this run. I know it's all going to culminate into Secret Wars, but honestly, the journey itself is really satisfying, engaging, and interesting. But it's just, again, a matter of me sitting down and finishing. I think one of the things that can be interesting about this book, like I said, we have a huge roster of Avengers, and any given issue or story arc will kind of grab a handful of these different characters. I think the art throughout it is super strong, and again, it's just a matter of me really committing to it. This is one I'm a little embarrassed I haven't read yet because I am a big Hickman fan, and I awaited these books for so long. This is one, though, I do plan to absolutely finish, given enough time. I've really enjoyed what I've read thus far, and I hope to close this out of my to-be-read list as soon as possible. Okay, on my to-be-read list have to include Spider-Man 2099 by Peter David. This omnibus edition includes that entire initial 90s run for this titular character, and honestly, this is a series I've always wanted to complete in its fullness. Peter David is a comic book writer I have really come to love in recent years after I absolutely fell in love with his X Factor 90s run. I'm actually currently reading the X Factor Investigations era with those omnibuses right now as well. But Peter David, I'm still also need to read his Hulk run in its entirety, so I've got a lot of reading to do. But anyway, this is a concept that always seemed fascinating to me. I love the design of Spider-Man 2099, thanks to, I believe, Rick Leonardi. But I think what Peter David does here is really fun. It's a dystopian science fiction future in the Spider-Man universe. We have Miguel O'Hara, who becomes the Spider-Man of 2099 after a kind of genetic therapy accident. Really a fascinating character, I think, for those that first encountered this character in Across the Spider-Verse, that animated film. Well, frankly, there's a lot more to this character than that film would lead you to believe, a lot of heroic elements. But anyway, this is a really fun book. This is one that I had an initial small paperback for, a couple issues of, really got hooked on it and always wanted to read the full book. When I heard that they were releasing this omnibus, it became one of my most anticipated releases of last year, 2023. I pre-ordered it, I got it, I started reading, and then it kind of just fell into the back burner. I will say, with the upcoming Volume 2 of 2099 Omnibus coming out soon, which includes some of the later runs up until I think the 2010s, they did some runs with him. Anyway, with that one coming out, this really was fresh in my mind again, so I've actually pushed this over to my currently reading shelf again, and I am making my way through it. So far, it's a ton of fun. I can't believe I backburnered it for so long. I think having that future setting, this is just a really fun space to exist in. I think that this is really comparable to something like Batman Beyond, if you're a fan of DC, and at any rate, it's just a Spider-Man book I really want to close out and finish sometime soon. Okay, next up we have Wolverine Omnibus Volume 2 from Marvel Comics. This is another one I really should have finished by now. I'm a huge fan of Wolverine, both in the X-Men and in a solo series. I really enjoyed Volume 1 of the Wolverine Omnibus editions, and I had to pick this one up. I've also collected Volumes 3 and 4, just to have them ready, because I know I'm going to enjoy the ride. Like New Mutants, this Omnibus is one I'm getting close to finishing. I've read a good bulk of it. It's just a matter of finally finishing it up, because I can't wait to get into the later solo Wolverine stuff. But what we have in this book is really fun. We have a lot of almost small graphic novels that kind of showcase Wolverine. We have these little mini-series events, and then we have kind of his solo series or his appearances, and I think Marvel Comics Presents. But we have a ton of Wolverine stuff. This is going through all of his solo stuff chronologically, so this takes place right after the Volume 1. And honestly, this is still a ton of fun. I think for me, I did start to lose my steam a little bit. Not every story arc hit quite as hard as the others, but it's still really great. I'm really enjoying it. The art we get throughout this, we have a lot of different artists attached to this omnibus, and honestly, so far I've enjoyed just about everything I've seen. This is a really fun book. The book actually starts with this fascinating kind of graphic novel with Havoc and Wolverine trying to stop a kind of nuclear attack. It's done in a very, very interesting art style, though, and after that we spin out into a couple other little miniseries like that, and then just the proper Wolverine book. I had read some of the Wolverine issues also in the Madripoor Knights Epic Collection that kind of spilled over into some of this Volume 2, but a lot of this was new material to me that I had never had the chance to read before. I am still very much enjoying it, and I look forward to reading some of those subsequent volumes of Wolverine. So this is a book, like I said, like New Mutants, that I'm getting pretty close to the end. It's just a matter of, again, getting over that last little hill and finishing the book proper. If you're interested, I do plan to review this omnibus once I finish it, but like I said, for now, it's still in that to-be-read pile. And last up, we have, most embarrassingly, Captain America Return of the Winter Soldier Omnibus. This is Volume 5 and the final volume of Ed Brubaker's run on Captain America. Why this is on the to-be-read list and why I am so uniquely embarrassed about this is, for the longest time, I've said that the Captain America Ed Brubaker run is my favorite Captain America run of all time. I've talked fondly about finishing this run in other formats. Well, recently, when this book came in, when they reprinted it, I looked at what it contained, and it includes Winter Soldier issues themselves, and it occurred to me, I never collected the Winter Soldier trade paperbacks. I never collected those smaller collected editions that included those issues. So much to my embarrassment, I have never actually finished the full Captain America by Ed Brubaker run. Honestly, this is what inspired this video, along with another video I actually saw from Comics Are Dope, BJ Kicks. He did a video of stuff that he actually hadn't finished yet in his collection, I think in December. Anyway, those kind of ideas together, and looking at my Marvel Omnibus shelf, I kind of had the idea for this video of comics to be read in this Marvel Omnibus editions. Anyway, so embarrassed. I can't believe I haven't, after all these years, finished Ed Brubaker's Captain America, because I haven't read at least those Winter Soldier issues. So there's a large portion of this omnibus I have not read yet, but I'm really eager to finally finish this run. I know, I cannot believe it. I think where I'm kind of stuck now is it's been so long since I've read Ed Brubaker's Captain America. It's one of my early Captain America books I ever got to read. And so because of that, I can't decide if I need to start all the way from the beginning again, or if I read just this omnibus, the issues I have not read. So I'm a little bit stuck. Would love feedback or opinions on that. I know I'm not going to really grieve reading this over again, because I love this run, at least what I've read of it. But yeah, can you believe it? Turns out I haven't finished this run after all. This might be a cautionary tale for some to really check out what those omnibuses include. This isn't the first time I've seen that an omnibus has issues collected that I didn't realize existed. Maybe I had collections that just didn't showcase certain issues. At any rate, really excited to finish this out. Let me know what you think of Return of the Winter Soldier. But again, had to confess that all to you. I cannot believe I haven't finished this run yet. Okay, and with that, it's going to wrap up 10 to-be-read Marvel omnibuses that I need to finish. I'll admit I am a little insecure posting this video simply because I feel like buying these books, I really should be better at finishing all of them, and yet there's parts of my collection that I'm still making my way through to varying degrees. I absolutely feel like I'm constantly reading these books. I just get buried behind a lot of these books that come in that I'm just really eager to jump into. You might have seen in one of my recent live streams, I read a lot of books at once, and yet some just get backburnered or kind of pushed to a background. But I do hope to finish these sometime soon. Let me know, are there books that you really need to finish reading or runs that you cannot believe you've never read as a comic book fan? I'd love to hear all about that in the comments below. If you happen to have read in the entirety some of these books I presented and you maybe recommend them, let me know that too. Maybe it'll give me the kind of encouragement I need to finally finish them out. I also thought that this would be a good way to just be a little more real here. As a comic book collector, I find myself not always being able to read everything right when I get them, and I'm still planning to read all of these books, to finish all of them rather, but you know, sometimes these things just take time. But anyway, let me know what you think of this video. I also thought that this could be a fun way to showcase books in my collection that I maybe don't film as much, simply because I haven't made my way through them completely. I haven't maybe reviewed them in their fullness. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for sticking around, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to give this video a like, that comment we talked about, and maybe check out another video on your way out. Thanks so much. Have a good one.